Hey everybody, it's me, Timmy Flyersguy, and welcome to this week's edition of the Timmy Flyersguy podcast. There was no intro in this video because there was no intro for this video this week because this video it's a very serious subject in this video, and in this video I'm going to talk about what hockey fights cancer means to me. I'm not going to be an outro either because since tonight is hockey fights cancer nights, the Flyers will be in action with the Carolina Hurricanes. It's hockey fights cancer night at the Wells Fargo Center. And I want to come right here and talk about hockey fights cancer because many of you probably already know about my dad, and there might be some of you that don't know about my dad yet. But here's the story. 2014, my dad, he got cancer in 2014, and it was a form of stomach cancer. And I remember that day, and it was like in October. I remember getting up in October, and this is way before I had the trade and everything. My dad used to be able to get me in a chair and transfer me from the chair to the bed. And while he was done getting me in the chair, he just wasn't looking good. He was not feeling good. I'm not going to get into what his symptoms were, but he just wasn't feeling like himself. So he ended up going to the doctor that day, and the doctor told my dad that he has cancer, stomach cancer. And when I got that news that my dad had cancer, I started to worry. I really did, because he was my dad, so I was really worried about him, and I was concerned. I remember going out that day just to do my normal rounds around the neighborhood, hanging out with my friends and everything. I kept thinking about my dad the whole time. And luckily my dad, I think he came home maybe the night after. At the time my brother was helping out with me and my dad. My dad recovered in the hospital. My dad was, but he came home. I think he came home that day, but he still wasn't feeling well. Luckily, my dad was in, sometime in November, my dad was feeling better. He was in remission after that. And he was alright. The rest of the year he was fine. He was okay on Christmas, Thanksgiving, and all those other days. And yeah, all those other days. And the summer was good too. And I remember it like it was that year because I wanted to get tickets for the Royal Rumble that year because it was in Philly that year. I wasn't able to get tickets. I tried going online, find the tickets that were all sold out. On Christmas, my dad, he got me 2 tickets. They weren't the Royal Rumble tickets, but I was very appreciative. 2 tickets he got me. He got me 2 tickets to a live event in Trenton, New Jersey at the Sun National Bank Center, whatever they call that arena now. They weren't Royal Rumble tickets, but I was very appreciative and I was very grateful that I was getting to go to a wrestling event. And things went well with me and my dad. We even went to my first Lehigh Valley Phantoms game with my dad and my first Reading Royals game with my dad. It was a playoff game, and they were taking on the South Carolina Stingrays. And I also remember him taking me to NXT at the Tower Theater. That was a pretty fun show. And summers went well with me and my dad. Summer went well. We ended up going into the fall of 2015, and this is when my dad's cancer came back. And this is probably one of the toughest years for me and my family. I remember in September my dad wasn't home for a couple of days, and my brother had to come over and help out, get me in the chair and bed and everything. Dad finally did come home sometime, and I think later that year. Fast forward to Thanksgiving, day before, well, a couple of days before Thanksgiving. Well, it might have been a weekend before Thanksgiving. I think my dad had some friends over for a poker game, and that was a good day for my dad. My dad had a lot of fun that night. And my dad was surely happy. He was surely happy that night, despite the pain he was going through. So, the day before Thanksgiving, my dad goes to the hospital again. But he does come home. He comes home later that night. We go to Thanksgiving. My dad's just not feeling well, so he ends up going to the hospital again that day. And it was my first Thanksgiving without my dad. And the day after Thanksgiving, I think he came home. He just wasn't feeling. We go to the month of December. My dad's actually feeling pretty good. He's in good spirits. He's pretty much happy. And I remember going to a Flyers game with him. It was the Flyers St. Louis Blues game. And that was the game where the Flyers came back against the Blues. And Evgeny Medvedev scored the game winner for the Flyers. So it was a good day during the Christmas. Then we get to Christmas, and my dad's not feeling well that day. He's in the bedroom, and it's my first Christmas without my dad. And fast forward into December. Well, this is the year my birthday was, December 8th. I can remember opening my gifts, and I remember my mom telling me a lot of these gifts were from Dad. A couple of gifts were from Dad. And I thanked my dad. I told him I loved him. He said, I love you too. Fast forward to Christmas. Like I said, I already talked about Christmas. We're going to January. We got a big wedding coming up. My cousin was getting married that year. So we went to that big mansion on Dungan Road. No, that big mansion. I don't know if it's on Dungan Road, but it's that big mansion. Yeah, on Dungan Road. I think it's on Dungan Road, I'm not sure. So it was a pretty good time. I'm not gonna tell you how my dad was after. I just don't want to share what my dad looked like. I have a picture of me, my dad, my sister, my mom, my brother. I think my sister-in-law's in the picture, my cousin as well. I would show the picture, but he did look happy in the picture, but he didn't look like the same person he used to be, so I don't want to show that picture. So the wedding goes good. On Easter, my dad ends up in the hospital again. It's an Easter without my dad. And then we go to, fast forward to the month of April, and my dad's in pretty bad shape. And this was when my dad was starting to not look good. He was in a lot of pain, and he he wasn't happy. And we go to the month of May. I don't remember much about the month of May, but we go into the month of June. And this was the month that, well, I want to also talk about something that happened previously. Where I remember my dad taking me to the Flyers Carnival, and I remember my dad was not feeling good that day. And this was the day I was going to get to meet College Drew at the Flyers Carnival. My dad wasn't feeling well, and I really was excited about the carnival. But in the back of my mind, I was mostly thinking about my dad. And I was thinking, we should I was thinking about canceling it because my dad wasn't feeling well. We still ended up going. I can remember my dad just not feeling well that day. And I felt, that day I felt like I was a terrible son. That day I felt like I was the most selfish person. I felt like I was the most selfish person that ever lived because I really wanted to meet Drew, but at the same time I was worried about my dad. And when we went through with this, I really felt like a piece of crap for making my dad driving me to the Flyers Carnival and him not feeling well. I just felt like I was a terrible son, and I felt selfish. And there was a time that day I felt like I was about to cry because I just felt like a selfish son. Like, really, and I said to myself, really, Tim, you're gonna go to the Flyers Carnival and be College Drew. Why your dad's not feeling well? What is wrong with you? I just felt like the experience was good me in College Drew, but I still felt very guilty and very selfish that day. I love my dad. I love my dad more than anything. You know what? I could have put this off because my dad meant more to me than anything. I just felt selfish that day. I really did. I really felt like a piece of shit that day. Going to the month of June, this is really hard for me to talk about. I remember this is the day my whole world came crashing down. Not just my world, but my family's world came crashing down that day. My dad was in a rehab facility. And I'm sitting on a computer. I'm playing Pokemon Heart Gold, and at the same time I'm thinking about my dad and thinking about if he's okay or not. My nephews were with me at the time. And we get a phone call from the rehab place. My sister picks up. And after like two minutes of the conversation on the phone, I can remember my sister just crying and saying, Tim, Dad's gone. He's gone. And I'm in the bedroom, and I just felt like somebody punched me in the stomach, and I felt like I couldn't breathe when I heard what happened. I had to face the reality that my dad was gone. He was no longer with me. He was no longer with me. And it was the toughest day of my life. But, I looked up to a lot of Flyers hockey players, a lot of celebrities, and a lot of professional wrestlers. But nothing compares to what my dad meant to me. He was the real hero to me. And I lost a hero that day. Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost a hero that day. And I remember my whole family coming together, my aunts, my uncles from both sides of the family. We all came together. They came to visit us. And I also remember my good friend Tano from Tano's Deli stopping by and paid his respects and said he had stuff. He wanted to give us some stuff too. So he came to give his condolences to my family. And I remember the day of the funeral. I didn't want to get up that day. I really didn't want to get up that day. Because I was just sad I didn't want to get up. But I ended up getting up anyway because he's my dad. I need to pay my respects to my dad. We go to the funeral. I wrote a speech the night before. I wasn't able to read it because my lungs were getting like a little weaker and I couldn't really talk in a high pitched voice. People really couldn't hear me when I talked back then. So I wrote the speech. The whole funeral was absolutely moved by it, and that's what the dad realized. My dad's officially gone now, and I realized I had to be strong for my mother. I had to be strong for my family. And I can remember weeks later I got very sick after my dad had passed. I had a horrible headache, and I just wasn't feeling well because of the stress and the grief. But to tell you the truth, the pain I went through was nothing compared to what my dad had to go through. I can remember in October, the first Flyers game of the season, and I remember I didn't know how it was going to be. I kept thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm going to watch this game. Because it was the first game I watched on TV without my dad. And I can remember them doing a pregame ceremony, and there was this song, they were paying tribute to Flyers legends that passed away. And when this song played, I just started crying. I really did, because it made me think of my dad. How much he loves Flyers hockey, and how much he loves Flyers hockey. Because I got my love for Flyers hockey from my dad, and that's why I'm a big Flyers fan. Because I remember him telling me stories about the Flyers, telling me stories about the Broad Street Bullies, and everything. I remember crying that day. We fast forward to December, and I did the biggest surprise of my life on the couple days after for my birthday. Apparently, my mom and my family, they told me that we're going to a party because my cousin Tommy joined the army. I walk in. And I'm a second party for my cousin Tommy. And we walk in, and everybody just yells, "Surprise!" And it was my 30th birthday party. My mom told me that my dad's last wish before he left this world was he wanted me to have a 30th birthday party surrounded by my friends and surrounded by my family. And this was my dad's last wish. And it came true. It came true. I had my 30th birthday party in front of my friends and in front of my family because it was my dad's last wish before he left this world. Dad, thank you. Thank you so much, Dad. Thank you. And that's my story about my dad. I know that my dad lost his battle with cancer. This is the reason I want to talk about what hockey fights cancer means to me. Because my dad was a huge Flyers fan, just like I was. And he bestowed his love for Flyers hockey onto me. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be Timmy Flyersguy. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be this passionate about Flyers hockey. Hockey fights cancer is a good cause. To anybody fighting this horrible disease. And the fact that it can bring many hockey fans and many hockey players together is a beautiful thing. So I love my dad. So I'm not the only one who's lost a loved one to this horrible disease. I didn't just lose my dad to this disease. I also lost my aunt back in 2018. I miss her as well. To anybody that's going through this battle, I want to tell you that I support you in your battle, and I support you with what you're trying to do. If anybody is ever going through this horrible disease, keep fighting. Don't give up. Don't give up. I remember hearing Eddie Olchuk talk about his battle with cancer. Guys like Mario Lemieux, who had to fight cancer. Guys like Oscar Lindblom, and guys like my friend Greg Wade, who's fighting. He's still fighting today. And I believe that he can be very strong. And I always believed that Oscar can be Oscar strong. Eddie Olchuk said in the broadcast, he hopes that one day hockey fights cancer, becomes hockey beats cancer. And I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree, Edzo. I absolutely agree. And I hope that happens one day. We lost a lot of great people to this disease. We have a lot of people still fighting this disease. I'd like to dedicate this video to the memory of my father, Christopher M. Sulak, who passed away in 2016. I'd also like to dedicate this video to Mario Lemieux, Eddie Olchuk, and my aunt Michelle up in heaven, who passed away in 2018. I also want to dedicate this video to my good friend, Greg Wade, and of course, Oscar Lindblom, and anybody that lost a loved one to this disease, and anyone who is still fighting this battle today. I'm Timmy Flyersguy, and this has been the Timmy Flyersguy podcast. To anybody fighting cancer, don't give up. Keep fighting. Keep fighting, because miracles can happen. Miracles can happen. So keep fighting and don't give up. Also, don't forget to donate to Hockey Fights Cancer. You can find that on the NHL website, and you can donate to Hockey Fights Cancer. Together, we can beat this disease. Together, we can beat this horrible disease. And I support you in your fight. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.